Dorothy begins her journey to Oz on the yellow brick road, and not too long after that she comes to a crossroads, faced with a decision as which way to go. But of course on the crossroads is the Scarecrow, who is a little bit useless in pointing which is a good way to make a decision to go and which way she should go in. But he does go with her along the way. Now we get to the point where she's also met the Tin Man, and the forest on the yellow brick road is getting a little bit darker and a little bit more foreboding. So, it would seem at first that the lion is a really scary prospect, being as he terrorizes them, it would seem. So far in this series of looking at discipleship, we've looked at beginning our journey of faith as a believer and follower of Jesus, and stepping onto the yellow brick road and beginning that journey. We've looked at how we can make some choices and decisions in life when life brings us to certain crossroads and certain points where we make a decision. But we also looked at how does our Christian faith inform us and help us within those decision-making processes, and how we can grow through making decisions, and how we can grow in our faith to help us make those decisions. But of course, as with all things in life, you know, we move on beyond the crossroads and the decisions in some sense, but then along comes challenges and difficulties and even sufferings that can be quite daunting when we face them. As we noted last week from the letter of James, he used the phrase that we'll face trials and testings in our lives. And they may cause us to struggle with our faith too, as a result. I think it'd be fair to say that since the dawn of Christianity and the Christian faith, our brothers and sisters in previous years have faced a variety of difficulties and sufferings and struggles. They face persecutions, particularly in the early days, but even in latter days as well. Face persecutions that are actually the stuff of nightmares, and I don't say that lightly, actually. I don't suppose any of us have ever faced the prospect of being told that if we don't deny our faith, then we'll be crucified, or we'll be fed to lions, or we may be stoned to death, or even, as the writer to the Hebrews recalls, sawn in half for not denying our faith. In that reading that Charmaine read to us, Paul outlines an extensive list of things that he went through as being a servant for Jesus, for serving Jesus and for being an apostle of Jesus and going out and sharing the message and helping to build churches. He went through all sorts of things to help, not to help, but because of what he faced as a result of the persecutions and the struggles and the sufferings for doing that work and that ministry. I also think it'd be fair to say that some of our predecessors in the faith would laugh at what we sometimes say we find difficult in life in relation to our faith, having what they've gone through. But that's not to deny that we will face a variety of difficulties and a variety of struggles and a variety of sufferings as well. And so at these times, first of all, as we look at this for a few moments, first of all, some advice is know your enemy. So Peter, one of the 12 disciples, one of the well-known ones, wrote this in a letter that he wrote to a group of churches, 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 7 to 9. He said this: "Cast all your anxieties on God because he cares for you. Discipline yourselves and keep alert, because like a roaring lion, your adversary the devil prowls around looking for someone to devour. Resist him. Stand steadfast in your faith, because you know, brothers and sisters, that others around the world are undergoing the same kind of sufferings. The devil is like a prowling lion and a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. So there may be times and there may be issues that we face in our faith and struggle with, because as we do step out in faith, as we do walk on that journey of faith, as we begin to deepen and grow in our faith, particularly, as we've outlined last week, in our prayer, in our reading of the scriptures, of our learning together with others, also in our sharing of the faith, the telling and the serving others and the giving in our faith, as we begin to do all those things, you can bet your bottom dollar that attacks will come from somewhere. You will find that there'll be temptations that come your way, temptations to walk away, to step aside, to not bother, to give up. You'll find that doubts will enter into your mind. You'll find that insecurities will creep in. You'll even discover, as you sort of grow in those kind of ways, the lies that will come into your head that will deny who you truly are in Jesus and in your faith. And that, if you like, is what Peter's describing as the devil being like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. If you are moving on in your Christian faith and growing in it, you can bet your bottom dollar those other things will come along as well, and you will face them. And this is where, by deepening your roots and by growing and nurturing the roots of your faith, it'll enable you to stand firm in the face of what you're experiencing during those times. As Peter says, resist the devil. Bring it to God. God cares about you in these situations, so bring it to God. In fact, again, referring to that letter that James, one of the other apostles, wrote to a group of people, he puts it like this in chapter 4 of that letter, where he says in verses 7 and 8, he says this: "Submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you." Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw closer to God, and God will draw closer to you. As we saw in that film clip that we've just seen a few moments ago, the lion seemed like a ferocious, terrifying lion. Well, actually, it was a bit of a cartoon lion, to be quite honest, but, you know, in the film, it's depicted as being a ferocious and terrible lion to face. But all of a sudden, gets a slap on the nose, and the whole scene changes. The whole scenario changes, and it becomes different. Not so big and not so scary after all. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God. Come closer to God. Bring God into those situations when you're facing those kinds of temptations and doubts and insecurities in your faith and the lies that can come about who you are in relation to your faith. But of course then, if you like, secondly, there are other types of struggles and difficulties that we will face with our faith. And those kind of struggles and difficulties will be one that you're very familiar with. There'll be the kind of things where there'll be illnesses within the family. It may be on yourself. There may be deaths within the family. And these kind of situations will lead you to have lots of questions and again, lots of doubts and lots of concerns and everything else. I remember 24 years ago when Polly hadn't quite arrived, but she was being grown inside Alison, so I'll put it that way. Alison was pregnant with Polly, but very early on it became a very difficult pregnancy, and it's fair to say she was the fourth child, and each pregnancy had become more and more difficult from a bleeding point of view as they continued. So we got to the point with Polly where, Alison started bleeding, and we ended up going for scans, and because of the nature of it, they put us on regular scans. And there came a point where we were going away for a weekend to the Lake District with some friends, actually, who was our GP. And at the final scan, they just turned the screen around and said, look, you need to see this before you go away for this weekend. And basically what they showed us was, you know, on the screen you could see little Polly in there and what she was at that point in time. And he said, do you see that dark area all around? We said, yeah. He said, that's the area of bleeding. That's where it's all kind of not working very well. He said, and it'd be fair to say that from an umbilical cord point of view, she's hanging on by a thread. Right, okay. So he said, you need to prepare yourselves that you're probably going to lose this child. So we got our Christian family, as it were, extended family from various places. At that point in time, we were in Nottingham, but I'd been in Leamington Spa as a curate before then. So we contacted all the various people, the pastoral prayers group that we had at Leamington in particular. We had our Christian friends praying for us and praying with us as well from time to time. People helped us in practical ways because Alison couldn't do some of the things that she was normally able to do. And also, people gave us their time. They listened to us as a couple from what we're going through and as individuals as well. As I say, that was 24 years ago and she'll be 25 in September. So we came through that situation. But even when she was born, and she was premature, she was a few weeks premature, so she was quite small, but okay, and needed to just be cared for in hospital for about 10 days afterwards. But the midwife did say when the next bit came out after Polly had turned up, and she said, are you a heavy smoker? And Alison said, never smoked in my life. But that's what Polly was living in. It looked like a right mess, but somehow or other, she'd been carried through that situation. I do believe that God helped us at that point in time, and not least in the support and the care we got from other people, but miraculously with Polly as well. Now, of course, that raises the question, well, that's all right for you, Neil, and you're a vicar anyway, so obviously God listens to what you've got to say. What about all the other people who lose kids and go through that scenario but don't come out with a smile on their faces? Well, of course, in different times, later in my life and in different circumstances, when I arrived here with a terminally ill wife, basically at that time we had people praying for us. And it's also fair to say that the people of Christ Church around that time were very helpful and supportive and caring towards us at that point. But we also had a friend going through the same thing as Alison. And she was also being prayed for by her church family, an extended Christian friend connection, if you like. Both of them got to a point around a similar time where they were told, if this doesn't work, then basically there's not a lot else we can do. For Alison, of course, it didn't work. For Sarah, it did. And she's still around, and we can rejoice that Sarah's still alive and well and enjoying life with her family. Of course, I had to go through the grief and bereavement of losing Alison, and so I've been on both sides of it. However, what I will say about both of those scenarios is, if nothing else, forgetting about the outcomes, the care, the support, the prayers, and the people who made themselves available to us were invaluable at that point in time. So if anybody is facing those kind of things, don't feel like you've got to face it on your own, that you've got to go through it alone. Don't feel that you can just say, well, I can manage, or I'll get on with it, or, well, I'm a private person, so I don't tend to sort of talk about that sort of stuff. Good to have your Christian brothers and sisters caring for you and helping you and going through that journey with you. Again, just another small one. I remember before I went into prison chaplaincy, I was at the parish in Bestwood, and I actually went through a period of depression. Now, I didn't even know what it was. I hadn't got a clue that I was depressed. I just knew that I didn't feel great, and that life didn't feel good in all ways, shapes and forms. I didn't have a word to put on it. But I wasn't so kind of wrapped up in myself that I wasn't able to talk about it with people. So I was a vicar, I was a team vicar with a team of other vicars. So I shared with them on a regular basis what was going on. And again, they were able to pray for me and pray with me and discuss it and be willing to listen to what was going on. And they, again, helped me through that period to come out on the other side. Looking back, now I know what it was. I know what was going on. And it has happened once again since. And again, I did a similar thing at a different point in time in being open and being willing to share what I was going through at that point. And bringing God into it as well. So it may feel like at this moment in time that you have a terrifying lion roaring inside your head. It might feel like that you're pinned down or pinned in a corner by it. Well, along with your brothers and sisters in Jesus in this place, give it a slap in the chops, just like we saw in the clip, because it can be amazing how, when we bring God into those things and we have our roots firmly planted in our faith, how that scenario and that situation can be changed, how things look and how things feel. And I think we'll just, to finish with, go back to those words that we heard a few moments ago from Peter and from James. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Discipline yourselves, be alert. Like a roaring lion, your adversary, the devil, prowls around looking for someone to devour. Resist him, steadfast in your faith. For you know that your brothers and sisters in all the world are undergoing the same kinds of sufferings. And from James. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you.